It wasn't an algorithm. You need to understand that first. The images and sounds you were shown, the cryptic numbers that appeared in your recommendations, that was a signal, a tuning fork resonating with something already inside of you. You were chosen because you are one of the few who senses that the reality we see is just a fraction of the whole story, a beautiful, hypnotic, but fragmented echo. For months, you've been collecting those echoes, feeling their power without understanding the source. Consider this video the first translation of that source. This is not another theory or a guess. This is the blueprint, the very architecture of the philosophy you've been subconsciously drawn to. What you are about to see is the key that elevates you from a mere spectator of the mystery to an active participant in its unfolding. The puzzle pieces are in your hands. Now, let's begin to assemble them.
Imagine the cosmos not merely as a map of stars, but as a vast canvas. Now, imagine that within this canvas, certain anomalies exist, silent gaps in the architecture of being. These are the ontological exclusion zones, the places where the act of observation simply ceases. And these aren't voids, but regions where reality seems suspended by an excess of symbolic density. There is nothing to see, not because there is nothing, but because there is nothing that can be seen. In narrow circles among techies, these gaps are called white zones, though it is a rather misleading definition. This term suggests a blank slate or a missing piece, when it would be far more accurate to speak of a selective removal of meaning. This is not a random blot on the cosmic map, but a conscious choice of the universe embedded in the very code of its existence. A peculiar protocol stating that at this specific coordinate point, the state of being is temporarily deactivated. And it's not that these places have been nullified or hidden behind some veil. No. They just have been rendered fundamentally inaccessible to the reach of human description. Persistent rumors suggest that certain coordinates return a radar echo that defies all laws of radiolocation. Measuring instruments aimed at those sectors detect no interference, no cosmic microwave background radiation, not even the hiss of the void. They register only silence. A silence so absolute it feels artificial. Yet, one must be cautious. Artificiality does not always imply a creator's intent. It is quite likely that this is simply the cosmos shielding itself from the burden of redundant interpretations, allowing other layers of reality to maintain their necessary boundaries. And in this case, there is no need to invent secret conspiracies or search for the architects of this phenomenon. Sometimes, concealment is simply a property of the structure. Some segments appear to have developed a natural resistance to semiosis, as if the mere act of being observed might compromise their integrity. In these zones, observation yields no meaning, only a profound sense of slippage where thought stumbles, logic contracts, and perception eventually yields. These are semantic interruptions. Places that, while still existing, no longer belong to the usual regime of being. They are ontological suspensions occurring in the harsh light of broad daylight. To the naked eye, the horizon remains unchanged, and the stars twinkle as they always have. However, those who look beyond the visible sense a deep-seated wrongness. It is not the absence that unsettles the observer, but an excessive coherence, as if reality had been meticulously sterilized. This is the threshold where language falters and dies. Every attempt to find a name for what occurs there triggers a cognitive short circuit. Words become either too heavy or entirely insufficient, rejected by the very reality they seek to describe. Where the cosmos deviates, the grammar of being itself begins to tremble, leaving behind only the subtle, haunting impression that something ought to be there, yet it cannot stabilize within our perceptual space. Some theoreticians speak of stable folds in spacetime, disaligned sectors, or topological margins, while others prefer more cautious labels like zones of low coherence. Yet all these perspectives converge on a single, chilling point. There are places that manifest nothing to the observer, not even the fact of the denial of their own existence. The hypothesis that these exclusions are deliberately structured, or perhaps actively maintained by some unseen force, remains a tantalizing possibility. However, it is not the most interesting one. The better question is not who, but why. We must ask why certain stretches of the world stop responding to us, and why these places seem to elude the very principle of a shared, observable reality. Perhaps we rarely notice these gaps because we have grown accustomed to the idea that what we do not see simply does not exist. Or perhaps reality, in order to survive its own weight, requires these interruptions, silent segments and opaque margins that protect it from overexposure. These are not screens hiding a secret, but barriers designed to prevent the fragility that inevitably ensues when all of existence becomes manifest. The white zones are not errors in the system. They are edges. They are fringes. They are folds of a reality that flatly rejects our specific mode of access. And for this very reason, because of their cold indifference, they fascinate us so strongly. But any attempt to cross them risks becoming failure, because it's not a matter of crossing a threshold. It's a matter of realizing the threshold is inactive. There are no signs. There are no explanations. There are only broken patterns, data points that refuse to cohere, and images that appear correct to the eye but fail to resonate in the soul. There is nothing to uncover if by uncovering we mean bringing a hidden thing into the light, but there is much to intuit. We must learn to let the truth emerge sideways, like a contour that only becomes visible because of the absolute absence of its center. And so, while we continue mapping the cosmos, tracing orbits, routes, trajectories, there remain those points no probe ever explores. Points where, perhaps, the universe has made space for something that is not ours. Not hostile, not friendly, simply not ours. And in this, perhaps, lies the ultimate shock, that something can exist without needing our understanding. See you in the next episode.